All right. In this video, I want to talk about how to be more mature, but in an attractive way, right? And the reason I want to talk about this is because a quote that I recently came across that really affirmed something that I knew but just didn't know how to express it is, and I might be butchering this, but it says, the point of maturity, or in order to be mature, the point of being mature is to return to the seriousness that your childlike self had during play. Now, what the fuck does this mean, Nazo? Right? What the fuck are we talking about here? What I'm, what this meant for me when it hit me was essentially that when you are a child, right? When you're a kid and you're in a sense of play, right? The reason you're attractive, the reason you're actually more mature in those states of play is because one, you're not judgmental towards anything. You're not labeling anything as good as bad. You are just present in it. You're, technically always being inclusive, right? When you're having a good time to play, you want people to join, or like, what's gonna make the vibe like better or amplify it. And if it's not there, it's good as is, right? You're non-needy. You don't need many things. And I feel like there's a lot of these little principles that we can apply to now being adults, right? It's that sense of non-neededness that really makes us all very, very attractive. And I noticed that in a lot of my life, for some reason, I was always kind of like childlike, right? Like, I didn't really like stressing over things. Things kind of came to me easy, especially when it came to school and this, that, the other, and especially university, which is an example that I want to talk about right now, is that in university, I somehow felt like an outsider. Why? Because while everybody else was stressing out over what they're going to make on this test and this, that, the other, I never really cared for those things. My main thing was, hey, am I having fun or not? And focusing on having fun. And for me, fun didn't include going out to parties and getting shit faced, blackout drunk, and then like waking up the next day and then going on about my life and complain. Like, that wasn't my sense of fun. My sense of fun was like figuring out where I can go to travel, like hanging out with my cousins, being around friends, and this, that, the other. And I feel like that sense of play that I really endured and enjoyed is what allowed me to be a more mature, quote unquote, version of myself, and allowed me to have more achievements than my peers around that time. And so, one of the things that really stood out to me is that I always went into everything with a sense of play, and I love that. And as much as, yeah, the world sometimes does take a toll on you, and it pushes you out of that sense of play, to stress, to worry, to be anxious, and whatever, because that's what everybody's doing. I have fallen into those moments too. And I realized that when I was in those moments of being logically mature and logically being, I need to be stressed about this, I need to be focused on, I need to be mature, I need to stop playing around. That is when I started to be like the paradox here is that is when I started to be immature. That's when I started to be needy, greedy, right? Jealous and feel all of these like immature emotions, right? Because I wasn't having fun, I wasn't being at a sense of play. But when I quote unquote went into that childlike sense of play of actually having fun, of like tapping back into that inner state of myself, that is when I started to look more mature on the outside as somebody who has his shit handled, as somebody who's attractive, as somebody who's non-judgmental and just like allows life and allows people to be. And that is those moments in time. And a good example that I want to say here is a one very affirming example from that time in my life where I was like, okay, this is who I am, was when I started watching the show Suits and watching the character Harvey Specter. Now, if you know me personally, like, like that show played a big fucking role in my life and in my development, because not it didn't teach me anything. It just returned me back to who I naturally was, right? And if you look at Harvey on the outside, mature, killing it, this, that, the other, everybody has a different perspective of him. Some people hate him, some people love him, some people can't. Like, he's enigmatic. And when I watched that show, that was the first time I felt understood. And the reason so is because when he is going about his work, it's work that feels like play to him. He has that element, that sense of play where he's able to be calm, have fun with what he's doing. And that's what ultimately makes him magnetic and attractive in that sense of like being able to get his shit done and a winner as well. And that all comes from him having that sense of play. Even in the heat of serious moments, if you go back and you watch the show, you'll see moments where he's having fun, cracking a joke in like the middle of like everything toppling on him. And obviously it's a show. However, the principles you can still take and you can use. Like the same thing applies with like Iron Man, right? And like Tony Stark in those other movies and stuff. It's that sense of childlikeness that allows them to be mature and win situations and win their lives, right? And so that's essentially what I wanted to talk about in this video, because I woke up today and a lot of like my life, I feel like when I'm not in alignment and I'm not in alignment, I'll get these nostalgic feelings of trying to get back into. It's like my childhood self telling me like, nah, come back, come back, come back. And it doesn't mean, I gotta go do what I was doing when I was a kid. Although when I was a kid, I still look back and I'll see some of the traits that I truly enjoyed, such as waking up early, wanting to go outside, wanting to be social, community, loving to be around work that feels like play, loving to be around winners and asking them questions and like all these different things. So it's actually a big gateway into a textbook of like who you are and who you want to be naturally, um, which I think is sick. But I've always had that sense because when I was a kid, like before the world, before the stresses of the world, before people telling me what I should be rather than being who I am, before all these different things coming into play, I want to return to that. That's when I was present, magnetic, happy, joyous, all these different things. And it's not about going back and being a kid and being like, you know, developmentally at that age, but it's about bringing that seriousness of playfulness into the now. And that is what brings maturity. And the last point that I want to, or second to last point that I want to make here is that this has been approved by the greats. When you look at Michael Jordan, he's out there, he's having fun, right? When you look at Kobe, he's out there having fun. He loves what he does, right? He's doing what he want. They're doing what they want to do since they was kids. When you look at some of the best actors in the world, when you look at um, even the best people like in tech, like Naval. Now I'm not a big tech person at all. If you know me, I have to go to SF today for a show. I absolutely hate that city, but I have to respect the fact that like a lot of people that are out there, they're doing the things that they naturally enjoy, and that's what makes that city run for them because they are returning to that childhood like interest that those people had. And I feel like now I'm seeing these big cities, these big hubs in the world be that way. It's just those people that were able to certain groups of people living in these vicinities next to each other doing what it is that they naturally enjoy and being like in those states of childhood like play while they are adults or whatever age they are. And the world just works like that, right? Everybody has a unique personality, everybody has a unique gift, man, that they're supposed to give to the world. And the best way to understand that is to go back to the most purest version of yourself, if that was when you were a kid, and grow from there, grow that seed, grow that, because that's the seed that you were given, right? The other thing, the last thing that I want to end off here is there was this piece of art that I came across. It's called the pale blue dot. And essentially what this was is there was a NASA Mars rover, or not Mars rover. There's this NASA satellite or whatever. It was on its mission. It was on its way out through Saturn, I guess, and it decided to the people they in the NASA room said, let's flip the camera and let's take a photo. Took a photo, and as you see it, I want you guys to go search it up. And I want you guys to comment like how it makes you really feel, because when I saw it, I saw that's Earth, and everything around it is just empty space. And when you for me, multiple things came up like, damn, like we get one, it's a gift to be here. None of this shit makes sense, but like really when you wake up truly and like you get to experience life and you see it as a present, the colors pop, everything hits different. Doesn't matter if it's rainy, doesn't matter if it's sunny, and it's a good way to go into the day. Doesn't matter if you're employed, unemployed, doesn't matter if you're single or in a relationship, doesn't matter if you're healthy or unhealthy. When you accept life as a gift, you're able to embrace it all for what it is. Second was like, damn, we're literally just this insignificant pale blue dot in the midst of everything. So it's just the meaning that we give ourselves. When we zoom out, we're insignificant, but when we're in the thick of it, everything seems bigger than it actually is. So why don't we just zoom out with all of our problems, our stresses, and all these different things? And when you zoom out, you're able to apply that a more mature, a more healthier perspective in life. And lastly, the last thing that came up was like, one day we're going to die. it's inevitable. I know when we're young, it seems so far away and this, that, the other, but I look back at these past 5 years and thinking, whoa, I was just a kid in the other room watching the Lakers win a championship in the Disney bubble to growing into having 20K months, six-figure roles, this, that, the other, da, 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 5 years later. And it feels like a blink of an eye. It feels like that was just yesterday, and it feels like I'm returning into that. And I know that one day all of this is going to be gone. So what a pleasure, what a beauty it is to exist right now. What a pleasure it is to, what a blessing it is to not be where you want to be at, because it means you're able to experience it all. And I think going into a day with like that energy of gratitude makes a colossal difference, right? I'm using big words now, colossal. But that was just like a little update that I wanted to make. Also, running a marathon in Austin, February 16th. So if any of my, if you guys are out there, let me know. It'll be a good time. And also, like, it's just so sick to when you set an intention and how everything comes into play. I remember with the whole Austin thing, I said like, oh, I want to go run a marathon, and then the next day, everything just lines up. All my friends are going. I'm going. It's gonna be a great time. A lot of things to be excited about, and a lot of things that I'm going to be sharing and documenting. But for this week, it was those three things, right? It was the childlike, returning to that state. Maturity is actually returning to the seriousness that you had when you were a child during a moment of play. Second thing was the pale blue dot. And the third thing was that one day you're going to die. So right now is a gift, regardless of how bad it may seem. Enjoy it fully and embrace it head on. And presence is the portal to whatever destination it is that you want to get to. It's not out there. It's right here, right now. That's it for this video. As always, drop a like, comment, subscribe, and hit that follow button on Instagram. I always appreciate the DMs that I get, even the questions that I'm getting. Like, it makes me feel really, really glad that I'm able to help people out, right? With all the things that I've gone through, and like somebody asking me a question and it just me being able to give them an answer, and then having that triple into like a bunch of little successes and a bunch of little wins for them when in an area where they may have been stuck in. I just love that, and I just love how much more unlocks, right? Like being able to block, like knock the bottle caps off of these bottlenecks for a lot of people, right? Because that's what YouTube and like creators and all this stuff like did for me when I felt stuck. So I'm able to do that again. So as always, it's a pleasure. I appreciate you guys watching. I will see you in the next one.